Hello, scholars, and welcome back to fourth grade narrative. My name is Missy Apareno, and I am thrilled for today's lesson because today we are going to be discussing a character's overarching motivation. Today's goals is to use a character's situational motivation or what they want in a single moment to add to our understanding of a character's overarching motivation or what they want the most. I can feel your excitement for today's lesson, so let's jump right in. What is motivation? What is motivation? Yes, scholars, motivation is why a character says, thinks, or does certain things. Characters have reasons for their actions. A character's actions are often driven by their conflict or relationships with other characters. So today, we're going to work on tracking a character's situational motivation across the text to determine their overarching motivation. What is overarching motivation? Overarching motivation is what the character wants the most. Often, we use a character's situational motivation to build our understanding of their overarching motivation. And great readers determine a character's overarching motivation by 1, stopping to identify the character's actions, thoughts, and dialogue. Then they think, what does this action, thought, or piece of dialogue reveal about what the character wants the most in this moment alone? Then they think, how does the action, thoughts, or piece of dialogue add to my understanding of what they want the most throughout the whole text? And scholars, you even have an overarching motivation when we think about you being a scholar. As a scholar, you submit every deliverable, implementing all feedback given by your teacher because you want to practice your skills. In that moment of you submitting your deliverables, that is your situational motivation. As a scholar, you attend every Zoom session because you want to internalize your good reader skills. That is your situational motivation in that moment of you joining Zoom. And scholars, you participate by actively listening and building on your peers because you want to help your peers and make the most out of each session. All of these moments show us your situational motivation. However, if we put those all together, we can reach your overarching motivation. And as a scholar, you do all this work because in the end, you want to go to and through college in order to make a difference in this world. That is, again, your overarching motivation. So with that, let's practice. Before we dive in to our next part of our time together, you need to make sure that you have all the materials you need as we work through the rest of the lesson today. It is time to set your workspace up. In front of you, you should have the text, the open window, your Lesson 16 packet, and a pen or pencil. Please pause the video now to set up your workspace with the following materials. Then unpause the video when you're ready to go. Let's jump right back in. Now, we are going to read the text, the open window. And as we read, we will stop throughout to think about Vera's motivation. Remember, as we read, we must stop to identify Vera's character's actions, Vera's thoughts, and Vera's dialogue. So let's begin reading. My aunt will be down soon, said the 15-year-old girl. While you wait, you must put up with me. Phantom Natal tried to find the right thing to say. He should be polite, of course, but he didn't seem to want to meet the aunt very much. Phantom was in the country to cure his nerves. His sister had wanted him to meet some people she knew there. If you don't speak to anyone, your nerves will be worse than ever, she had told him. And some of these people are very nice. Phantom didn't think that visiting strangers would help him much. He hoped that Miss Sampleton, the aunt, was one of the nice ones. Do you know very many people around here? Denise asks curiously. So I'm going to stop here because I'm getting some dialogue that I think will be helpful for me. Hardly anybody, said Francis. My sister stayed with friends here about 4 years ago. She wanted me to meet some people she liked. You know about nothing. Almost nothing about my aunt, the girl said with a smirk. I'm going to underline this piece of evidence. Not only does it give me a piece of her dialogue, but also an action. So she smirks, and we know when someone smirks, they find something amusing. So now we need to think about what does the character's action, thoughts, or dialogue reveal about what the character wants in this moment. So looking at these two pieces of evidence, I can think about this moment alone. What Vera wants in this moment alone is Vera wants, or her motivation in this moment, is to learn a little bit about Phantom because she keeps asking him questions about himself. Lastly, we need to think about how does Vera's action, thoughts, or piece of dialogue add to our own understanding of what the character wants the most? Well, I know now that Vera wants to get to know more about Phantom. Let's continue to read to figure out Vera's overarching motivation. Remember, the first thing that we must do is stop to identify Vera's actions, thoughts, and dialogue. So let's read. Only her name and address, said Phantom. He wondered if Miss Sampleton was married or a widow. Something about the room made him think that a man lived there. The girl looked at Phantom with a glare. The most terrible thing happened to her 3 years ago. She started. It was not long after your sister was here. So I'm gonna pause right here because I'm getting some of Vera's dialogue. Her saying that something terrible happened here 3 years ago. A terrible thing? A concerned Phantom asked. Terrible thing seems unlikely in a quiet country spot. You may be wondering why we keep that window open on an October afternoon, Denise said curiously. She pointed to a large French window that opened into a rolling green lawn. Well, it is warm for this time of year, said Phantom. But does that window have anything to do with the terrible thing? He continued with a nervous look in his eye, his fingers fidgeting. It all started when they went out through that window 3 years ago. The girl mysteriously said, my aunt's husband and her 2 younger brothers were going hunting with their little brown dog. None of them ever came back. They must have slipped into a swamp and drowned. The worst part was that their bodies were never found. Here, the girl's voice started to crack. My poor aunt, she believes that they will walk in through the window just like they used to. That's why she keeps it open. The girl continued, throwing her body onto the chair. I'm going to pause right here because I'm seeing Vera's actions. As she's telling the story, she's throwing her body on to the chair. This is quite dramatic. My poor dear aunt. She always talks about the way they went out. Her husband had his red coat over his arm. Ronnie, her younger brother, was singing an old song, My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean. He did that to tease her. He got on her nerves. You know, sometimes on a still, quiet evening like this, I get a creepy feeling. I almost think they will all walk in through that window. Now, readers, we need to think about what does the character's actions, thoughts, and dialogue reveal about what the character wants in this moment alone. Well, let's think. On page 2 of paragraph 4, these two pieces of evidence tells me that Vera's motivation in this moment is to scare Phantom. And lastly, we need to think about how does Vera's actions, thoughts, and dialogue add to my understanding and your understanding of what the character wants the most. Well, let's connect this motivation of trying to scare Phantom to our original thinking around Vera's overarching motivation. We see that her overarching motivation right now is to scare Phantom since he knows nothing about the town. That's why she was asking him questions in the beginning. She wanted to make sure he knew nothing about the town or her grandmother in order to make sure that her story was scary enough to scare him. Now it is time to shout it out. How do good readers determine a character's overarching motivation? Loud and proud. Yes, great readers determine a character's overarching motivation by identifying the character's actions, thoughts, and dialogue, then asking themselves, what does the character's actions, thoughts, and piece of dialogue reveal about what the character wants in this moment alone? Then they go on to think, how does the character's actions, thoughts, and piece of dialogue add to our understanding of what the character wants the most? Second question, get ready to shout it out. Why is it important to track a character's situational motivation throughout a text? Loud and proud. Yes, it's important because oftentimes we use a character's situational motivation to build our understanding of their overarching motivation. Nice job, scholars. You are now ready to dive into your independent task. Now it is your turn to show what you know. Scholars, you're going to finish reading the text, the open window. Then you're going to complete the chart on page 4 of your lesson 16 packet. Then you're going to answer the open-ended question, making sure to use race. Don't forget to submit your work to your teacher for feedback. Scholars, I cannot wait to see all of the amazing work that you're going to do when identifying both situational motivation and the overarching motivation for the rest of the text, the open window. I want you to have an amazing day and I will see you soon. Go forth and conquer, fourth grade leaders. You got this.